people, and welcome to Eyiyemi Chats. As you know, we speak with people in various industries in and across Nigeria who are doing fantastic things in their spheres. And today, we're privileged to speak with Kunbi Osinoiki. So let me quickly read her bio, and then you can get a sense of who she is. Kunbi Osinoiki is the co-founder and CEO of Kunbi's Music Company, a music school operating out of Lagos, Nigeria. She is also the CEO of the SME Tech Coach, a consultancy service which supports small businesses in transforming their operations through the judicious use of tech tools. Kunbi studied economics at Manchester University, UK, obtained an MBA with distinction from the University of Liverpool, and holds a certificate in early years music and movement from Canterbury Christ Church University. She is a fellow of the African Women's Entrepreneurship Cooperative and currently serves on their Alumni Advisory Board. Kunbi lives with her husband in Berlin, Germany, and they have 3 grown-up children and a daughter-in-love. She and her husband provide marriage counseling to intending couples, and she supports her husband in offering career mentorship to professionals through Josh Leadership Academy. Kunbi enjoys reading, singing, and playing the piano. First and foremost, I love the fact that she's your daughter-in-love.
She is.
And that is absolutely amazing, because a lot of people, I think it was a counselor who told me when I first got married, I can't remember who says, if you say love with your with your husband's parents, right, then you are bound to love them whether you like them or not. And I thought, oh my gosh, so I also use the same thing. Kunbi, welcome to the program.
Thank you for
How
having
are
me.
you today? You're most welcome.
I'm very well, thank you.
Great. So let's talk about your love for music. I mean, we have a lot in common. I mean, first and foremost, we just found out recently that we went to the same secondary school. I don't know how that happens.
Mad.
I mean, life is so interconnected. It's amazing.
It is.
And we were in the same cohort with AWEC, and that was where we started getting to know each other. So tell me, what started your love for music?
I was about 5 years old when I started taking formal piano lessons. My dad is a classical music aficionado, or rather was. He's passed away now. And he was one of the founding members of Muson. He was actually the chairman of Muson.
Oh, yeah. I didn't know that.
Yes. He served as chairman of Muson for quite a few years. So he's always loved, sort of classical music, was always passionate about exposing us to the arts. And so I started taking piano lessons when I was 5 and carried all the way through to secondary school. I stopped formal lessons just before I took my university entrance exams because I couldn't juggle everything. But aside from, I had lessons in piano and singing, recorder, what you normally do as a kid.
Yeah.
I was also involved in the school choir at Queen's College. And I just carried on singing for many, many years in various choirs and churches and fellowships and different things. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So when did you think to make it a career? Because, I mean, you went to university. Did you go and study music?
At all. I went to university. I went to university to study economics. I mean, I kept up my love for music by my involvement in different choir groups and things. But music as a career was not even on the horizon. My first job was in a consultancy. And when we had our first son, it was around his 3rd birthday. By that time, we had moved house 3 times, and he was only 3 years old. And we were about to move again. Now, when he was a baby, it didn't mean anything. He had no clue what was going on. But at this stage, he had started to form, friendships. We had, a small community in the community, with our neighbors. He had friends in the neighborhood, and we're going to uproot him from all of that again. And I just thought, we can't keep doing this, that it's not really good for him. And so we decided that we're going to look for a school. At this point, we lived in the UK. We're going to look for a school that would take him from that age all the way through, and then whatever happened with our careers, we would just make sure that we kind of revolved around that. And so it was in the quest of looking for a school, we came across this Jesuit school that I just completely fell in love with, and I was like, he has to go there.
Yeah.
But it was a fee-paying school, and because of his age, the legislation in the UK meant that with any child carer, he also had to have a full-time place, because he was not yet officially of primary school age. So, and all the childminders were like, well, my ratios mean that I have to put him on my books as a full-time kid because he's not expected to be in full-time school at this age. And so I was looking at paying not just private fees, but also for a full-time space with a nanny or with a childminder, even though he was only going to be with them 2 or 3 hours a day. And I thought, we can't afford this. And so I thought, well, my dream, as you know, as a young mother, has always been, I want to be the one to drop my kids off at school and pick them up at the end of the day.
Yes.
That is completely incompatible with a career in IT consulting. And at that point in time, my husband's career was also taking off. So either of us could be required to hop on a plane at a moment's notice, to go to our various clients. And I thought we had no family near us, and I was like, we can't do this. So I started looking for a flexible role, flexible job. And in the course of doing that, I wasn't even looking for them. I'd never heard of them before, but a company in the UK that offered early years music education. And the big headline was, do you want a job that fits around your life? And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I want.
Wow.
And that was the hook that drew me in. And so I looked at their requirements. They wanted somebody with a background in business. Thankfully, because of my MBA, I could tick that box off. And who had a musical background. And of course, I'd always had music on the side. Yes. The interesting thing was, as a teenager, when I really struggled with, the whole motivation of carrying on with lessons, my father said to me, you cannot give this up. You need options in life. You're a woman. You need options in life. Wow. And he insisted that I carried on with my music lessons. I could have quit many, many times over, especially as it got more and more difficult. But he was like, nope, you have to just keep doing this. And so I have him to thank for the fact that I could also tick the second box to say, do you have a musical background? Because yes, I did. I did. And so I bought into this franchise. I paid my license fee. I was given an area to be responsible for. As it happened, like I said, we were about to move again. Yes. So I bought the license for this new place we were moving into. Thankfully, that license was available. And I grew the business there. I started from scratch. And within 6 weeks, I was teaching my first class. And 12 years later, I was still at it. I was only going to do it for 5 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So when you sign up with this company, you do like a 5-year license that you renew every year. And I thought, well, I'll do it for 5 years. By that time, he'll be properly in full-time education, and I'll go back to my consulting career. But I completely fell in love with the job. I fell in love with the transformation I could see in the lives of the children and the families that I was working with. And I kind of loved the flexibility in the lifestyle as well. And so by the time it came to, and as you know, when you're building anything as an entrepreneur, it can take time. Yes. And I was in a completely new area, in a foreign land, in a completely new industry. And so by the time it came to 5 years, I felt like I've done all this hard work and I'm beginning to see the fruits. Yeah. And I was like, I don't want to hand this over because, what I could charge for it at that point bore no relation to the amount of labor that had gone into it. Do you understand? Yes. And I was like, we're just at the point at which this is really going to take off. And am I prepared to just hand all this work to somebody else? And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. And so I ended up, renewing, 2 more times. So I renewed again at year 10. But by the time it was 10 years of doing that. I knew life circumstances and other things. I just knew that I was moving to Nigeria and I wanted to take this experience to families. Yeah. And so I started to look for somebody to sell it to by that stage. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to go a bit back, right? You said consulting, IT consulting. So
Yeah,
that struck out. I'm thinking, didn't she just tell me that she read economics? Where did
I did.
IT come from?
Yes, so it's interesting actually because I worked for the University of Liverpool, and I got, like you said, I got a distinction, and the university approached me and some other students to say it was the first time that universities were allowed to begin to raise additional funding in the UK,
Okay.
on top of whatever grants the government gave them. And so they were looking to set up a consultancy company that they could place their MBA graduates in, and they
Okay.
could charge an income for.
Ah.
So we were invited to be part of the group that set up this thing for the first time, and we were placed as into a project that involved deploying IT systems to the workers of a multinational company in the northwest of the UK, and so that's how you know there was a little bit of IT element in
Mhm.
my MBA, but it wasn't the main part of it. But it was more like the management of projects. It was more like
Okay.
IT project management consultancy,
Okay.
as opposed to coding or anything
Okay.
else. It was helping to
Okay.
deliver and implement IT systems,
Okay.
and also got involved in the training of their staff in using those systems as well.
It's amazing how life and opportunities and time,
Yeah.
just collide. And if
Yes.
one is not on the cusp of grasping that,
Mm-hmm.
one looks back in time and thinks, gosh, I could have done so much.
Mm-hmm.
And that's playing out in the stories in your life experience that you're sharing with us now. So moving forward to Nigeria, so you brought your music company to Nigeria.
I did.
Tell me, can you compare for us the difference, or can you talk us through the difference between setting up in the UK and then setting up in Nigeria? Was it a smooth transition?
No, it wasn't at all. Because I was speaking a foreign language, to be honest with you, in terms
Are
of,
you kidding me?
well, because there is an established industry and an established understanding of how music education works in the UK.
Okay.
So people appreciate that when you're talking about early years music, it looks very different to
Okay.
when you're talking about, instrumental music tuition.
Okay.
And it's an established discipline. You find early years music practitioners in schools up and down the country, in community centers, in health centers. When new parents are encouraged to join these groups and all of that stuff. In Nigeria, people thought I was sitting a 1-year-old in front of a piano, and they kind of were coming to me with that kind of expectation that, oh, I want my child to learn drums. I want my child, and the kid could barely walk. And so and then when I explained that, no, actually, this is about sensitizing, and it's an immersive music experience. It helps the children to develop all kinds of skills that as they get older and their hand-eye coordination develops and they're able to grasp things properly, they are in a stronger position to pick up things quickly in their music, in their instrumental lessons. And people just didn't get that. They were like, oh, so I'm just going to be singing and dancing with my baby. And I'm like, it's actually more than that. It's very highly structured. All the activities are very intentionally put together to help build on some key and foundational musical skills. And people didn't get it. And I'm very grateful for the expatriate community that had an experience of going to these
That.
classes in other countries, and so they got it, and they were excited for what we brought. And they were like the ones that really helped us to get a footing in Nigeria. And it's still a massive gap in kind of people's expectations and people's understanding and what it is that we do. But in time, the children that we started with, as few as they were, they started to need more. And this was exactly the vision I had for the business, because in the UK, the company I worked with, they were only interested in early years.
Early learners.
Yeah. So we had all these like highly musically attuned children walking out of our doors as soon as they started full-time school. And then there was nothing. There was a massive gap, because very few people would touch, a 4 or 5-year-old and provide anything. They would say, oh, wait until they're 8, wait until they're 6. And so typically there's about, 3 to 4 years where the kid has nothing, in terms of music. Nobody wanted to touch them. They were too old for the early years, but not quite ready, for the traditional music teachers. And
Yeah.
this was a gap that I wanted to fill in the UK, and I couldn't with the company I worked with because they were not interested at all. And I had put my children through music learning experiences that was tailored for that 4 to 8
Age.
age range, and it was highly successful. They both did very well on that program. And so I was looking to marry the two. I was looking to provide the earlier stuff for the babies and the toddlers, and then transition them to this kind of exploratory instrumental lessons before they now delve deeper into full-blown lessons when they're a little bit older and they could do more. And so as the kids that I started working with grew, I was able to offer that transition. I used the same program that my girls had used themselves. Yeah. And the rest of the say is history.
So what do you think it is that builds that gap? Is it because, first and foremost, your dad was one of the first people or the chairman of Muson. So obviously there's a pool to draw from. And I know that with Muson, it's a lot, the participants are older. But obviously we're no different from anyone else around the world.
We are not.
Right? We have music prodigies. So what's the gap? What makes us here not understand that we can guide a child in a gifting that they have?
It's foreign to our culture. And you have to know that a lot of music in Africa especially is learnt by rote, by copying.
Yes.
Our music isn't written down. And so, people learn by sitting at the feet of the drummers and, the guitarists in church. You sit down and watch what they're doing, that kind of a thing.
Yes.
We don't have a structured, formal method, if you like, of kind of progressing people through a music, curriculum, if you like.
Yes.
But even when you look at primary school, they don't even have music as a subject. They have creative arts, which lumps together drama and music and fine arts. And
that was different when we were growing up, wasn't it? We had music as a single subject.
Yeah. It's very different in the kind of the official. I don't know whether our school chose to do that differently. There are schools that will offer music as a subject, but the government curriculum does not. It lumps it all together. So you have a term of this, and it's just unsatisfactory in my view. And then we do not have a culture of nurturing mothers, expectant mothers. So when I was pregnant, we would go to the clinics, and the nurses and whoever else you were speaking to, the health professionals, as part of their service to you, they will give you a list of different mommy and baby groups that you can join. And I suppose because the society there was not as close knit as it is in Africa, people needed explicitly to be told, you don't have to be at home, struggling alone with your baby
by yourself. Yes.
Yeah, these are places you can go to. I mean, with us, your house is invaded as soon as you have a baby. Everybody moves in.
You'd have to fight them up from when you conceive.
Exactly. I mean, you barely get to hold your own kid because there's 10,000 aunties and grandmas and everybody else carrying the baby for you. So it's a very different society, and so there was not so much a need for that in our culture. And I can see that a lot more mommy and baby groups are beginning to sprout. And I think as more and more women, younger generations are more professionally minded. These things are beginning to that you can begin to see a demand for these kinds of groups. But yeah, I mean, we would go to they had children's centers, for goodness sake, in the UK, and all they were about was serving that age group. And so they had different service providers, music included, who would come in. They had different activities, different club each day of the week, to help just make sure that the children develop. The 0 to 5 years are incredible in terms of making a difference to a child's cognition, and their creativity, and
Yeah.
all of that stuff, that is the most fertile time to help your child, give them the best start in life.
Yeah.
And so having a rich exposure to all sorts of different things is essential. And the UK government understood that, and they invested in that. They spent millions setting up all these early years centers all up and down the country. And yeah, but we don't have that.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, we don't. We don't seem to, sad to say, we don't seem to think that education is a major thing. I
Yeah.
was reading something on LinkedIn yesterday. Some teacher in a school in, I think it was the US, who said he had a long conversation with a 4-year-old who said that his rights had been violated. So apparently the teacher had agreed with the parents to use the face of the boy
Right.
in a poster for the school. And of course, the poster was all over the school. And the boy walked past and saw his face and was very upset. And he went to report. So he made a formal complaint. This is a 4-year-old, right? In my head, when I was reading, I was thinking, Nigeria. Oh my God, that child, in fact, he would not even be listened to. So, of course,
You'll be flogged.
Exactly. The teacher listened to him and then escalated it to the principal. So the principal was like, he said he laughed with the teacher, and then he just sat and he thought, maybe this is, this guy must. So he called the guy into his office, booked an appointment. They sat down, and the boy was like, but it's not my parents' photo that is up. It's mine. And some friends will make fun of me. Some people will point at me. I didn't know. I walked past it. He said they had I think, an hour's conversation.
Oh, wow.
Honestly. And he ended up apologizing to the child, right? And the child was like, he wanted them to take it down. And he said on his way walking the child back to his class, the child got to his class and then looked back at the principal and smiled for the first time since they were having the conversation and said, it's okay, you can leave it. But please, next time, ask us before you put... He was like, I'm thinking, excuse you? But it points to, one, how we underrate how intelligent children are. And how we just dismiss what they have and what they can contribute.
Yes, correct.
Wow. So how did you now involve technology? I mean, I'm sure this because, I mean, if you move 3 times in 3 years, I don't even want to know how many places you've moved to in the last how many years. Why did you get to the point of involving technology, and how? Because music for anybody, whether it's an experience or a learning, is normally a one-on-one thing. It should be done well. The way we think, it's done physically. How did you make that transition to employing technology to your advantage?
Well, it started off with the company I was working with in the UK, running that business. It was I mean, we're talking 20 plus years ago now, about 25 years ago or so. And they were using cassette tapes at the time. Okay. So the music that we're using with the children we're using different cassette tapes, and CDs had just come out. And I cannot be dealing with cassettes. Okay. So I was spending an inordinate amount of time late at night, copying the cassette onto CDs.
CDs, wow.
Yeah. So I was one of the first people in the company to start using CDs, and they were looking at me like, "What are you doing?" I was like, "It's easier with CDs. You can skip better, because sometimes with cassettes, if you decide, okay, I don't want to use this particular song, and I'll skip to the next one, you have to be sit there in class, fast forwarding, rewinding, and trying to work out at what point do you stop." And the whole thing was
Yes.
I thought this could be so much more efficient. So I've always been a bit of a how do we make things better person, and then I eventually migrated from CDs to MP3s. Nobody was doing that at the time, and I've just always loved using tech. I'm just kind of wired that way, and I guess then when we then had to move a lot, there was a point at which when I was transitioning to moving my business to Nigeria. I left my team in the UK, and so we had to be able to, work remotely. So we had to use all sorts of tech tools to communicate, to kind of share information and all of that. This was years before lockdown. So I was doing the reverse at the time. My business was in the UK and I was in Nigeria, and I was managing it from there. And yeah, I don't know. It's just my brain immediately thinks, how can tech solve this problem? And I always look to tech first.
So has that gone down well with the clients that you service? Or do they still, because sometimes we can be so stuck in our ways, do they still insist that, do you have some clients who insist on it being a one-on-one?
Oh, no. So we do offer one-on-one lessons, but we also offer group. And actually, I love one of the reasons why I did music as well was because of there was a whole raft of research that was being done around the time I was, a young mom and pregnant with my son, that talked about the benefits of music on young children. And there was a Time magazine article that has stayed with me all these years. I've kept up with the research, and the latest research suggests that actually music learning for young children is best done in small groups, because they get a lot more from seeing other people. Yeah. Especially if it's something they're struggling with, and they can see that, oh, but this person was able to do that. They actually progress faster in groups than in one-on-one lessons. Music learning can be incredibly intense. It requires a great deal of concentration and focus, which the age group that I kind of, I go as low as birth, basically. They have zero concentration at that time. So you have to think about lots of different ways to keep them engaged. It's a lot more difficult to have a young, 3 or 4 year old, focusing optimally in a one-on-one lesson, because they'll get fatigued so easily. There's so much happening than if you did them in a group class. And so we are doing more of our beginners are all moving into group lessons. And then by the time that they are ready for the intensity of the one-to-one, they have enough of the foundational skills. Their fingers are better coordinated. They can work with both hands. They can read, basic rhythms, and they can read sheet music to a good extent. And then they're ready for the more intense work. People don't realize just how much of a cognitive load playing music, especially from sheet music, is. It's incredibly demanding on the brain. And that is why when people suffer brain damage, music therapy is one of the first things that will be used as part of their as part of the rehabilitation, because you're using both hands, you're using all your senses at the same time. You're using your auditory skills, you're using your visual skills, you're using your motor skills all at the same time. Okay, so all these senses have to speak to one another, and therefore your brain is on fire. And so what they find is that when people, especially in therapy, are involved in music activities, the brain is forced to create new pathways to be able to send the messages about. So the brains get stronger. I don't know if you remember, there was this MP in the UK who was shot in the brain, young lady. And she had to spend years being rehabilitated. And music was one of the things they did. And what the brain does is that if it's given the right kind of stimulation, it will bypass the dead parts and create new connections. So what we don't realize is that the brain is a living thing in itself, and it does have the ability to recreate itself if it's given the right kind of stimulation. Music learning, memorizing music, is also a defense against dementia. And so you'll find that people who were musicians who eventually get dementia, the one thing they can do is play the piano beautifully. They can't remember anybody's names, but they can play their instruments, they can remember their songs, and they find a happy spot, So I can't remember the question, but
it's wow, the power of music, eh?
Yeah, music learning. I think there was a lot of false there's a season, I think about a 10-year period, when there was this whole noise about the Mozart effect, and they were saying that, oh, listening to music is going to help your brain go stronger. It doesn't. That's just a passive activity. You have to actively engage in the art, the act of making music and reading music, because then you're involving your visual senses as well, and so there's different ways that you can learn music. And what we try and do is that we try and cater for all kinds of learning styles, and we try and make sure that people come away with multiple skills in the way that they're able to access and produce music. So we try to bring a balance. We want to make sure that our learners are literate, but we also want to make sure that they can be creative. If you have a purely classical music training, you are bound to the sheet music, and you do not have the confidence to express yourself on your instrument outside of the sheet music. If you have purely kind of rote learning by chords and all of that stuff, you are not literate. So you're somebody who can speak the language beautifully, but you do not understand the elements that bring everything together. You don't understand why things work the way they do, and you cannot pass on your music to other people because you cannot write it down. And so in my studio, we're passionate about helping people to be literate, but without losing sight of the creativity. And it's a difficult balance to strike. But in order to do that, you cannot do that with just traditional teaching methods. You have to use tech. There's an amazing composer. His name is Matteo. Oh, I've forgotten his second name. He's a fantastic composer. He's written scores for films in Hollywood and all sorts of things. He doesn't read a dot of music. Well, he didn't at the time. And all his music was done through technology, all of it.
Wow.
Yeah, and he's a Grammy Award winning.
Go figure.
Yeah. So, but he's handicapped because when he wants to write his music, he has to find
somebody else to do it.
You understand? But with technology, he was able to bypass that. He was able to get his computer to listen to the music and write out the score
for him. Wow.
And that's where music is going. So anybody who thinks that, just going through the traditional method is going to serve them well, they will be left behind. There'll be non-musicians who are incredibly creative, who will be writing stuff and winning work because they know how to use technology to
their advantage.
So I think technology has infused all parts of life, including music, and I think it's important that we use tech with all our kids right from the beginning. So in the group classes, they not only learn on the instruments, they also learn to create music online. They use all kinds of tools to help with different skills, with their rhythm skills, with their note reading skills, with their oral skills. We have all kinds of different applications that we use. So we're very tech-enabled studio because this is the 21st century. We're not learning. We're doing our learners a disservice if we stick to just traditional, purely traditional methods. Yeah.
I will share something with you. So I was part of the choir in Queen's College as well. And I'd always wanted to go back to the choir. I didn't do that. I joined a band in university. I was one of the lead singers. But when I got out of university and I started working, I got the bug. I was bitten again by joining a choir. So I joined a church choir. I didn't need to be part of the church. But after a while, after a few years, I felt it was more... we struggled with getting the right notes and blah, blah, blah. And what I found was, or what I later understood when I was looking through it was like, nobody knows how to read music, right? We're all just singing because we have great voices. And it depends on how good the music director is. So I got the opportunity to work with Ige. And when she was looking for volunteers to sing in a choir in a smaller church. And I was like, oh my gosh, this girl was trained at Muson. So that means she knows music from the beginning. If you see the way I jumped at it. So before we learned any song, she will do the solfege, the tonic solfege. And, of course, it was hard at first. But I thought you could never get the music wrong after that. Never. And I actually got to the point where I could listen to the song and then write out the tonic solfa, if not the sheet music. And I thought, oh my gosh, I never want to go back from this knowledge.
Absolutely. I mean, our rehearsals would be so much quicker if
Honestly.
we had basic music literacy, and that's my beef with not having the right kind of music education in schools, because it has a ripple effect. If people will make music in the community, okay, and if everybody had a basic level of literacy where they understood, what the skills were, they could read a little bit of sheet music and whatever. These rehearsals do not have to go on all night necessarily.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. It also speaks to the fact that music is such a powerful tool. And especially as you've explained it now, the act of music, not just the listening of music. My husband, for instance, if you play a song, he can sit on the piano
Wonderful.
and play it. He can also play it on the guitar and play it on the drums.
Yeah.
And I think to myself, I'm like, I mean, who are these people? Where do you come from? Without sheet music, I'm not sure. I don't think he can do sheet music, because he learned from sitting at the feet of somebody and all
exactly.
that.
He learned by ear.
Yeah, exactly. He learned by ear. So imagine how much more skilled he would have been if he chose to pursue that and learn the real act of music. That'd be phenomenal.
It would be. We have an innate. We're born musicians, especially in this part of the world. Music is in our bones, is in our genes. We understand it, we get it. Africa has the most amazing rhythmic, kind of, we're amazing type of rhythms that we produce. You can see what we're doing on the world stage. But it's such a shame that none of the amazing music that our people are creating we're able to pass it on to other people, to a wider audience. So if I want my 5 or 6 year old to be able to play something by Nathaniel Bassey, from sheet music, it's not available.
True.
Do you see what I'm trying to say? So even though we're making such an impact on the global stage, think of how much more of an impact we could make if we're actually able to write our music down. These things will not die off as quickly. Every time an artist dies, a whole encyclopedia has just gone.
True.
And unless there are lots and lots of YouTube videos and somebody's listening, it's just obviously with my career, I subscribe to all kinds of music services.
Yes.
And the minute a song is being released by an artist, you can get the sheet music, you can get the chord charts and all of that stuff. There's a whole industry that provides all of that. Yes.
For continuity and for learning.
Yes. But we don't have anything, even close in Nigeria yet. I hope that we get there.
I'm not so sure. I mean, I'm currently watching on Netflix Afrobeats, the backstory.
Okay.
And Shania started from the 1990s. And when he got to 97, 98, I worked in media at that point. And I thought to myself, I was part of these people's lives. Right? But fast forward, and like you're rightly saying, I'm not sure that any of them can produce score music or score sheets for their songs. Right? And not any one of them has gone back and thought, I need to, document this. It's like, and that's unfortunately part of our culture. I was watching, the lawyer was talking about, how people don't like to pay lawyers for entertainment, but the lawyer is the first person you should come to when you have when you're thinking, I want to be a musician.
Yeah.
But we do it backwards.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing with music. We have such an amazing pool. That's why for me, it is phenomenal that Fela saw to go to school in the 1950s.
Yes.
And then come and turn that school upside down and make his own music. It's phenomenal.
It is.
So that's why I'm a bit hesitant about saying it's our culture that we do not, because we have outliers like him. who showed that, you don't need to be exposed to something to, well, he was exposed to it. I mean, he did go and study it. But
He
you know what
did.
I mean?
He
You
did.
don't need to
Yeah.
be exposed to something or to fully understand it to appreciate the benefits in future. So you say you start with children as early as newborns. How do you do that?
It's those are the mommy and me classes, and honestly, they are amazing.
Okay.
Absolutely amazing. It's a really wonderful. It's like a haven in a mother's week, and I took my children to this as well.
Okay.
Because it's an amazing bonding opportunity, so you're in a class with other moms and you're singing and whatever. So think about all the different things that are happening, this kind of social cultural context that's going on, the socialization of the kid.
Yes.
The kids are following an instructor. You're already beginning to get them to understand that there's such a thing as authority outside the home. Okay. And there are certain, rules of engagement that apply in this space. You understand?
Yes.
And all of this conditioning, kids just they can't begin to process on that level. But what we're doing is we're conditioning them. We're preparing them for more formal and more structured learning. But also the activities that they do, we get them to think about, you have to clap to the beat. So they have to listen for the beat. They have to clap in time to the beat. Okay. They learn to move their bodies to the rhythm. All of these things, eventually they begin to pour out and express on an instrument. Okay. So and so it's kind of preparing them and laying a very good foundation upon which, when they now are put in front of sheet music or whatever it is,
yes.
it kind of it's like second nature to them. And then think about all the melodies that are already in their head. Okay. Think about all the songs that they've already learned. We have a library of over 3,000 songs that we use in our early years work. And you can imagine the huge amount of different songs that your children will imbibe and begin to know the words to, begin to understand the melody to, develop their pitch. Your first voice, your first instrument is your voice. And so getting kids to begin to sing and sing a lot of different styles and different types of songs just means that when they are then given a piece to play, they can recognize elements of. They'll be like, oh yeah, this little bit reminds me of this other song. They already have, the same way with words. Children can't speak a lot, but they're surrounded by millions and millions and millions of different sounds and different words every day. So they have a bank, they have a database that they can draw upon, and they can begin to make sense of it later. There's the same way you're building up that database of musical sounds, different types of expressions, different ways of combining different tones and different pitches. You understand me? So you're building up their musical, repertoire already. Yeah. So when they begin to engage with, you now put a Mozart and a Chopin, whatever, in front of them, they can recognize elements of it, and they're like, okay, yeah, I understand how this goes, and it just makes the whole process of learning music so much easier and so much more natural than if they've had very little musical inputs. They come in dry as a bone. Nobody plays any music in the house, or if they do, it's only one particular genre. It's not, they don't have a wide repertoire, of different sounds or different styles of music. Then they will struggle,
Wow.
And then, you get parents saying things like, oh, but, such and such child is doing, much better than mine. It's the teacher is no good. But actually think about the conditioning. Think about the conditioning that, this other kid has had from childhood that was missing in your kid's life, and you expect them to perform the same way. It's not going to happen.
Wow. Wow. Okay. Let me come down from my cloud. So in terms of staffing here, being that how has that worked out for you with this sphere that you're working with in Nigeria, especially?
Yeah, it's a really big challenge. We have a lot of amazing musicians, really well skilled, who are doing really good work where they are. but it's hard to find people with the right mindset. First of all, we have a lot of people who want to blow.
Tell
Okay,
me about it.
we have a lot of good musicians whose desire in life is to be on the big stage, playing for Burna Boy and Davido and whatever else, and are not passionate about teaching, not able to teach. Now, coaching, which is what we do, is different to performing. And I have interviewed so many people who are fantastic musicians who could not teach, or could not teach in a way that is going to be beneficial to the learners.
Yes.
Okay. So teaching music is a completely different discipline to performing, to being a performer.
Yes.
And you can't give what you don't have. It's really, really difficult. I've been very fortunate. I've had some amazing people who are passionate about teaching, and who are also good performers. But sometimes those two things they don't necessarily correlate. And so what we also now offer is we offer people who are passionate about teaching and want to teach as a career and are willing to commit at least 2 years to teaching. We then help them to get the right training and the right certification. So we will sponsor them to get internationally recognized, certificates from the various exam boards. We'll get all the resources that they need to prepare for the exams. We'll give them the coaching that they need. And at the same time, we teach them also about teaching practice. It's what we do is incredibly sensitive, especially working with small children. What I'm about is trying to instill a lifelong love for music and giving them really strong foundational skills so that wherever they end up in life, whether as prime minister, whether as a top surgeon, whether as an amazing pilot, they still have their music. They've got the skills to keep music going forever. And that's because I understand that, music learning and being able to play a musical instrument to a good standard is going to be amazing for your mental health, for your brain health, and all of these things for the whole of your life. And so, I don't want a situation where somebody doesn't get the right kind of skills that they need, and then they're like, oh, I had to stop it because I couldn't go any further, whatever it is. So so it's really, really tricky, and so what we're now doing is we combine teaching practice with making sure that people are getting the right kind of skills, in terms of practical skills. And so anybody who joins my team has to be committed to lifelong learning. Nobody ever knows everything.
True.
And so it's continuous, never-ending professional development on my team. That's the way we do it. So when people first join us, they don't necessarily have all the skills that they need.
Yes.
But what they do have is, I always, as much as I can, I try to recruit for character. And so if I find somebody who has the right kind of passions, the right kind of ambitions, and the right kind of work ethic,
yes,
then we're more than halfway there. Because to a certain degree, some of the skills can definitely be taught.
Be learned.
Yeah.
Wow. So, I mean, you are a problem solver, Laurel. It's true, because I mean, you can't find what you're looking for, but when you find something or someone that's a quarter way there, you're willing to help them to achieve what they need to get to benefit not only the organization but themselves in the long run.
100%. I believe my passion is that anybody who comes my way, whether as a student or a teacher, will always leave better than when they came through the door.
And that's the only way to grow.
Yeah.
That's the only way to grow. Because when you do it for one person, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I think that's my mandate. You cannot come and not be transformed, working with me for any length of time. You can't. You can't. And if you're not willing to be transformed, then we're incompatible.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Would be a waste of time and energy, wouldn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
And most people will go away. I was having a conversation with somebody on a completely different level this morning. We were on the phone for over an hour, and I had to see, this guy kept on saying, I want to move to where there'll be no distractions, there'll be no rancor. And I'm like, which bubble are you living in? In every single part in life there is. But the difference is you've got to be willing to understand who people are and then make the best of it. Because somebody's also looking at you and thinking, this person is a problem and I don't want to deal with this person. So we've got to give to get. And we all have to have one. If we have the goal in mind, if we're all working towards one goal, then it makes it a whole lot easier. Sort of, kind of. Okay, so I'm going to ask concerning this teaching the teachers. You have said that you recruit for character. If you find character, you're fine. So the person doesn't necessarily have to have a music background?
No, they do. They definitely do. They need to show. So I'm very interested in the music story. And one of my first questions in an interview is, tell me your A to Z. And because of the kind of deprived society in which we are and the very poor opportunities that people have to develop as musicians, if anybody has battled the odds and all the stresses and everything and managed to get themselves a certain level of music education and certification before they come to me, then I help them progress beyond that point.
Okay.
Do you understand? Oh yes, they definitely. I do not take somebody because it's not practical. It takes too long, to get to a certain standard. So I do have a minimum standard in terms of music qualifications that I require. And then I will take you beyond that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So in a nutshell, if somebody was coming to you to ask, they wanted to do what you do, right? How would you encourage them, so to speak, or what would you say to them?
What would I say to them? Well, I think the first thing I'll say to them is that you have to be prepared to play the long game. Because you're working with raw materials. So when you have your clients come to the door, your children come to the door, or adults, or whoever it is, and they're starting from base camp, from point zero, you're going to do an incredible amount of sowing, seed sowing and watering and nurturing. And for a very long time, you're not going to see anything coming through. Okay. You need to have a coach mindset, because there are lots of things that happen in people's heads that can sabotage their progress. One of the things, so I mean, with my team, we do a lot of, we always have a particular book or a resource or a podcast or something that we focus on every term to try and grow our skills and help us understand how to help people get better. And one of the books we've just finished was by Nick Ambrosio, and he talks about this tension between when you're teaching in a lesson, you have an area in which you've got boredom, and whatever it is you're given, whatever it is you're teaching, is too easy. It's not engaging enough, whatever. And then you have the outer circle, which is frustration. Okay. And somewhere you need to find the right tension between boredom and frustration. Now, some of the technical skills, especially that a good musician will need, kids will find boring and pointless. So it's like, why the heck am I doing this over and over and over again?
Yes.
Alrighty. But their ambition is to be able to play like, this top guy that they see on telly all the time.
Sure.
And so, but those things are too hard for them to do without the foundational skills. So somewhere along the line, you need to have a process and a system in place that will just very carefully balance those two things. You understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
And you have to learn that. You have to learn how to do that yourself. And you need what a very good lesson is one when in which both the teacher and the student are in this zen zone. So you don't have a frustrated teacher, you don't have a frustrated, and you don't have a bored teacher, you don't have a bored student. You see what I'm trying to say? You need to kind of find a way where all these ingredients are working together. And then you need to encourage your children or your learners to put in the work to get better between lessons. Progress will happen without practice. It does happen, but it's very, 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 very slow. Very slow. And so therefore, then you need to understand what the expectations are. Okay. If and the problem is, we usually have a triangle here. We have the parent who's paying, we have the child, and then we have the teacher. Okay. And the parents' expectations and desires could be miles different from what the child's expectations and desires are.
True.
And therefore you then become a diplomat. Okay. Because you know that if you're doing 100% of what the parent wants, you're going to lose the kid. You understand me?
Yes.
And if you're doing 100% of what the kid wants, you're not going to satisfy the parents. Okay, so somewhere in the middle, you need, and then obviously you have your own vision for where you want to take this kid.
True.
So somewhere along the line, there has to be a lot of communication about, okay, let's agree on a direction of travel, and let's keep that communication going. There has to be ongoing communication, and never. I think I do not like the arrogance of where teachers think, well, I know best, and it's my way or the highway. That just doesn't work. So yeah, you have to be prepared to play the long game. You have to be prepared to do a lot of work in kind of nurturing those skills, especially if you want it to be lifelong. So a lot of parents will come and say, "Oh, how long before my kid takes an exam?" And it's like, how long is a piece of string? It's never going to be the same for every child, because their home circumstances are so different.
That's true.
And so I do not teach to the exam, unfortunately. That is not my goal, because my goal is to raise a competent, literate musician. I will therefore, I'm all about giving as many skills building up as many skills as possible. And then the exams are used to validate the teaching. But I will not say that, okay, where is the exam syllabus? And I'm only teaching what's on the exam syllabus. Because they're missing so much out. A music exam is typically, especially for beginners, typically 10 minutes long.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Okay. You get 10 minutes to show what you got.
Oh,
all
wow.
Right. So it is possible to cram. And I've seen a lot of students who have crammed.
Yes.
Yeah. The teachers have taught them, this is the motions you go through. They have no understanding as to why the music is written the way it is. They cannot even read half of the notes on the page. But they will go in, they will play, and they will pass. But they're totally illiterate.
Got you.
Yeah. And so, yeah, I mean, the way we teach doesn't work for everyone, but I'm very proud of the fact that our students, when they do leave us, they go on to do amazing things. And just very recently on Instagram, we shared a story of one of our students who performed in his school's A-level graduation concert very recently. And we had him in the difficult years when he was doing his GCSE music and just hated music, didn't want to know.
Imagine that.
And it wasn't enough to just teach him the syllabus. We needed to help him understand why playing the piano is so beautiful, and why he wants to do it, and why he's going to want to do it for the rest of his life. And we were over the moon when we realized that he did carry on with music well. We got him through. He passed his GCSEs. He went off to study in the UK. And he then chose to do music for A-levels. He not only plays the piano beautifully, he also sings. He's got a beautiful bass voice now. We knew him before his voice broke. He's got a beautiful bass voice. He does amazing performances at school. And he's just such an example now. And I shared his story, and I shared all the battles we had when he would refuse to open the door for the lesson teacher. The lesson teacher yes, the teacher would spend 1 hour outside the whole lesson time waiting to be let in.
Oh my word!
Or or they will get in and he will say he's having his dinner, and he'll eat his dinner as slowly as he could. As slowly as humanly possible.
Wow.
And then he would finish his dinner and say, okay, the lesson can start, but he's not moving from where he is. So the teacher is supposed to teach him piano. The piano is on one side of the room. He's on the other side.
On the dining table.
Refusing to move. These are the kind of, and if you are in it just to pass an exam, we would have parted ways a long time ago. This child is not serious. We'd have parted ways a long time ago. He would have dropped music and he would not be where he is today.
True.
And he, I think somebody must have shared the post with him. We didn't share his identity. And then he reached out and he said, my goodness, I really gave you guys a tough time. He says, and I said, yeah, you did. But look at where you are now. And he says,
exactly.
And he said something that just made me so happy. He said, I'm married to the piano. He's going off to study economics, and he's going to do, he's going to do amazingly well in whichever sphere he finds himself. But he says, me and the piano are together for life, and that is my job done. That is my job done. That is what I'm about. And so yes, he has passed the exams, and he has, but it wasn't at the price of his love for the instrument. And sometimes, and I know that money is a factor, and I know that, yes, kids having to take entrance exams with different schools is a factor, but sometimes the drive to get the kids to pass exams upon exams upon exams is at a heavy price.
True.
And it's at the price of their love for the instrument.
True. Very true. Very well said. Wow. And imagine what his children, imagine the experience children will have with music.
Exactly.
Oh, wow. And on that note, that very joyful note, I'm sad to say, but we have gone over an hour. I would really like to thank you for spending the time with us. I enjoy these interviews because it's such an eye-opener to the world of the person we're interviewing. And in this case, you have given me a vast education in music, in music learning. I am going to be blowing your trumpet everywhere.
Thank you.
Because there are children who need to go through life with music being part of who they are.
Yeah.
And we cannot close that door because we don't understand it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Kunbi.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. I trust you'll have an amazing rest of your day.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. Have a good day.
You too.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Oh, wow. That was enlightening. All right, people. Until we come your way again next week, enjoy.